One of my favorite anime fun facts is that All Might, the red, white, and blue strongest superhero in the My Hero Academia universe, is actually not directly inspired by American superhero comic book characters from Marvel or DC, like Captain America or Superman. In an interview at Comic-Con, the author of My Hero Academia, Kohei Horikoshi, revealed that actually All Might was based on Son Goku from Dragon Ball. Therefore, while the worlds of Dragon Ball and My Hero Academia are very different, Goku and All Might's positions as some of the strongest in their respective stories lead to inevitable comparisons. While obviously no one in My Hero Academia compares to the planet, galaxy, or universe-destroying feats of Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super, how does All Might compare to Goku in the first half of Dragon Ball's story? Could All Might defeat Kid Goku in a fight? Or does being inspired mean that he can't hang with Kakarot even as a child? Let's find out. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure to like, subscribe, and let's jump right in. Now, the overall scaling of original Dragon Ball is actually probably one of the most difficult parts of the series to scale for three major reasons. Firstly, power levels were only given to characters retroactively, and even when they were, the only way they functionally work in this part of the story is if they are non-linear in fashion. So when we see Kid Goku's power level jump from 10 to over 100, this doesn't actually represent just a 10 times multiplier in his overall power, but actually a much larger jump. For clear examples of this, Chapter 1 Kid Goku's power level of 10 is only twice as high as the farmer with a shotgun, and yet Goku already displays feats more than hundreds of times stronger than even peak humans. The second issue builds off the first, and it's that this retroactive vague scaling causes there to be gaps or contradictions between information given. For example, while we know that Pilaf Arc Kid Goku's power level is 10 and that his Uzaru form is a power level of 100, we don't get told another power level for the next 100 chapters until Tien versus Master Roshi, in which Roshi has a power level of 139 and Tien 180. But even this might not be wholly accurate because a separate guide tells us that Roshi's actual power level around that time was the same as Tien's at 180. The third and final major issue is that when even ignoring power levels, it's very hard to apply some of the best feats to different characters, especially when most of the best feats happen insanely early in the story. Of course, I'm talking about Master Roshi's moon-busting Kamehameha in the 21st Budokai. When Roshi does this, he uses a technique known as max power, an ability he literally never uses again. So while yes, Kid Goku easily surpasses base Roshi's power by the time of the 22nd Budokai and King Piccolo saga, it is quite hard to justify him being above the max power Kamehameha. The best you can say is that King Piccolo is probably stronger than the max power Kamehameha, given that Roshi didn't even try to use it, but this kind of ignores how impractical it is for combat. There's also Roshi saying that the Tri-Beam has more destructive power than the Kamehameha, but the issue again is that Kid Goku never directly scales to that attack either. I think a more consistent low end, at least for Kid Goku, is scaling off of the full power Roshi destroying Mount Frypan, which hopefully unsurprisingly is a city to mountain level feat, but even then Goku could only scale to this at the earliest around the time of the 22nd Budokai. Also, just so we're all on the same page here, Roshi's full power transformation and the max power attack are two different things with drastically different amounts of power. So where do I think Kid Goku scales? By the time of the King Piccolo fight, I think he reliably, at least with his normal stats, sits substantially above mountain level and at most sits at that moon busting tier. I simply can't with full confidence say Kid Goku is like a casual moon buster or planet buster, especially when his far stronger adult self from the 23rd Budokai tournament is stated to be a moon buster with his super Kamehameha, an ability he couldn't even use as a kid. Speed, at least, is a little easier to cover than attack potency. While Goku starts the series barely being able to dodge bullets, as he gets stronger, he eventually gets fast enough to consistently react to laser beams and attacks described as blasts of light. The solar flare feat is actually not a good example of this due to how vague it is. The Red Ribbon Army and King Piccolo feats are much more consistent and less vague. Either way, this would make Kid Goku anywhere from relativistic to several times faster than the speed of light. As for hacks and abilities, Kid Goku obviously has the fewest hacks out of any version of of Goku, he can use Kamehamehas, can really only consistently fly with the Nimbus, and has the Power Pole, which can impressively extend all the way to the moon. As a martial artist, he can already evenly match the likes of Master Roshi and Grandpa Gohan, who should be masters of literally every martial art on the planet. So even if Goku doesn't necessarily know those martial arts himself, his fighting ability is so high he can still contend with them in pure skill. So overall, even as a kid, Goku is already more powerful than a grand majority of most anime characters, but still has a tremendous amount of room to grow. But is this enough for All Might? Let's get into it. Now, the universe of My Hero Academia has a good deal of controversial scaling statements and arguments surrounding it, so right off the bat, I'm going to cover the recent statements that said All Might was only Mach 10 in speed. From what I've seen, this statement comes from those recent My Hero Academia fanbook, and the actual statement is that All Might's max running speed is Mach 10, which has nothing to do with his combat speed. It's like if I said Kid Goku was slower than the speed of sound because Saiyan Saga Goku took 6 months to travel across Snake Way. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go with All Might's actual scaling, which thankfully is easier than most characters in My Hero because pretty much every other hero is stated either weaker than All Might or as strong as All Might, either in his prime or his nerfed self. Let's start with weakened All Might, who is pretty explicitly 60 times weaker than his prime self, as he needed 300 punches to beat a Nomu who he could originally defeat in just 5 punches. Even in his weakened state, however, All Might displays some of the most impressive feats in the series. In the first episode of the show, All Might with a single punch is able to completely change the weather, which requires moving huge cloud formations, which brings a single punch from All Might anywhere from mountain to island level in power. This is made even more consistent by the probably canon My Hero Academia movie Two Heroes, in which All Might performs a large island level feat against the villain Wolfram by shattering his giant metal cube. Directly stacking that 60 times difference in punches onto these feats puts individual punches from Prime All Might at the bare minimum of country level. Country level being the strength of a casual Prime All Might is again weirdly consistent when in Vigilantes, All Might is able to disperse clouds on an even more massive scale just by jumping, which has been found to be country level. However, the 60 times multiplier is actually a big misconception, with the gap between Prime and weakened All Might being even larger than most people think. During the Nomu fight, All Might needed to somehow go beyond 100% of his current power at the time and still required those 300 punches. So of course, we don't know how far beyond 100% he went, but as we'll see, his max limit in Prime is likely far higher than just country level. Of course, I'm talking about Deku's final smash in the story, which obliterated Shigaraki and caused the weather to change across the planet for multiple days on end. This is the single best feat in the entire story of My Hero, and yet this is only considered a little stronger than what All Might could do. So I think it's perfectly fair to put All Might at multi-continent level, as the difference clearly isn't supposed to be that much. As for speed, again, All Might is definitely not just Mach 10. Characters slower than even weakened All Might can react to and dodge lasers, with high tier characters performing similar feats, making All Might at least FTL pretty consistent, though with the multiplier you could edge him into that MFTL range if you really wanted to. One for All doesn't provide many hacks, as it's ultimately just a stockpile of power that allows All Might to move fast and punch hard, and that's about it. Every other ability is just an application of that power. So, who wins this? Like the title suggests, the fight is closer than you think. Even weakened All Might is beating Goku through the first few arcs of original Dragon Ball. Things get messy around the 22nd Budokai, where Goku might be a moonbuster with arguments going both ways, justifying why or why not. If not, his attack potency is probably also about multi-continental, and when it comes down to their other stats, All Might actually is probably faster and would probably win. In other words, though it might take literally everything he's got and beyond 100%, All Might could probably take down King Piccolo. However, if you think Kid Goku is a moonbuster, at least with a Kamehameha, he pretty easily destroys All Might. The gap between multi-continental and moon level is literally over 6,000 times, and a potential speed difference of a couple times FTL simply isn't going to make the cut to make All Might win. Ultimately, I just wanted to show that All Might is no slouch, especially with all the slander about him recently with the Mach 10 statement. Either way, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and as always, thank you to my members who got to see this video early, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!